Hello, everybody tuning in and everybody here. Welcome to the performance testing panel, where we managed to get together awesome panelists, performers. I'm happy also to have, and that's usually a big challenge, a lady among the lines. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Performance ladies in the team, and I see many in the audience. Great, great. I love that. So, to start this panel, uh, I'm going to ask each one of the panelists to introduce themselves to show who they are. But before we go to their introductions, everybody, to avoid to be running around with your questions, I would love to go with a microphone and let the audience out there hear your voice. There's a Slido number. People tuning in as well, if you are far from home and you want to slam the panelists with an awesome question, make them discuss, uh, don't kill each other. I know there are some stances that are heated in the performance world. I'm going to be moderating those questions. In Slido, you can vote them up. If you find something interesting, please vote the questions up and make the panelists really think about it and get really interesting discussions. I'm going to have a few questions of my own as well. Be prepared. Don't be afraid. Be very afraid. No, I'm kidding. So before that, no, just because he's next to me, we'll start here and until there.
Hi there. My name is Chaitanya Abad. I work for a company called Intuit, based out of San Diego. My passion is primarily in platform engineering. Uh, I manage a few capabilities at Intuit, including performance engineering, operational data lake, and disaster recovery.
Hey folks, my name is Kaushal Dalvi. I lead the performance and resiliency engineering teams at a company called UKG. And I've been in performance engineering for about 18 years right now and deal with, take care of all things around performance, resiliency, observability, etc.
Hey, everybody. My name is John Hill. I just recently joined CrowdStrike. You might have heard of them. uh, and I've been doing functional test automation and developer experience since starting. And I've been doing this for about 15 years. And I keep bouncing between performance and functional testing because there's a pretty big overlap.
Hi, my name is Mimi Benach, and I work for Perforce. I'm a principal technical consultant there. I have spent the last 20 years doing automation and testing in both those spaces. And I work a lot with our customers to, in all different verticals, to help them better do their testing. So thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you all here. Thank you so much for coming and agreeing to be exposed and bring your ideas and be here in front of the audience. The audience, thank you very much for the ones that are coming. I hope that with these panelists, we're going to answer all your hottest questions and ponderings about performance testing. Please, please, please slam them. That's why they are here for, so that they can bring their expertise and help you all, and probably not to be too heated in between them. I hope to have some good discussions, some good insights, and let's see what happens. I have a first question that was selected here from the Slido. It's voted. It has only one vote. Again, vote for the questions. I see several already. I'm super happy about it. But before I'm gonna step, we have one from Lisa. But before, I want to start with a heated one. What is your favorite performance testing tool? Who wants to go first? Don't be shy.
My favorite tool is Gatling, along with Gatling SAS as a combination.
So we've used a ton of tools over the years: Load Runner, Enterprise, Neoload, Gatling, K6, Artillery. At this point, my current favorite is K6 for all the capabilities that are possible, uh, especially as we are stepping into creating MCP servers, etc. for through AI.
Yeah, I would also say K6 is now my favorite. I'm a Grafana ambassador, so I have to say that legally. But it's great now. I don't know if you all follow it, but they've introduced browser-based performance testing. And very recently, like 12 hours ago, redid some of their APIs to be a perfect match for Playwright. So you can write a functional test and then convert it into a performance test for free. It's pretty great. And what I like about it most is that it allows me to marry front end and back end performance, and it's kind of like a plugin for everything.
Yep.
So everything's a solved problem. So I just find myself being a solution engineer more than anything.
Well, I'm going to have to go with BlazeMeter because that's my product. One of the things that I do like about BlazeMeter, it's sort of open source agnostic. So the lion's share of our customers do use JMeter. It's still pretty much the standard for most people, but we are seeing a lot of K6 and Gatling. We get asked a lot about Playwright. So there's definitely new there's new avenues opening up where people are starting to change their testing.
I'm happy to see. I mean, I think I have to switch places with you and sit there elsewhere. Too many K6 energy over there. No, but that's fine. And as Mimi is mentioning, the tool belt is widening for everybody. And I'm happy to see nothing against JMeter, but that the performance engineers out there are trying other tools. So let's go to the first question, which already has 2 votes. Oh my God, just 2. People, please vote for the others. Post yours. If you are tuning online, please look, check the code. I think it should be somewhere over here. And submit your questions. Vote for them. And here says vote for Pedro. So Pedro, I don't know. Vote for Pedro too. Now, the first question from Lisa. What do you use to simulate realistic user behavior and workload patterns in performance testing? And how do you ensure that ensure accuracy in your test results? Who wants to jump at that first?
You want me to go first?
Please,
Okay.
please.
Well, the simple answer is with honestly with K6 browser. Well, let me answer it 2 ways. So there's 2 things you can do. You can take your automated functional tests and have them run as browser tests, as load tests, in that way. It's a pretty cheap way of doing it because you've already got them, presumably. Hopefully, you have browser-based tests for testing a browser if you test that. But on the other side, you can use K6 to kind of do that. And the problem is that how do you make that certainty that you're testing as a user will? So the biggest problem, I think, in browser-based and user flow testing is that humans are slower than a lot of these tests. So a Playwright test is written to run as fast as possible, faster than a human, waiting for the next element to be click, wait for the next element, click, as fast as possible. And humans don't do that, right? And so that's really where the job becomes difficult. But yeah, I would say that Playwright and both K6 browser are good tools for simulating user load.
Even at times it goes faster than the browser itself with Playwright. I've seen that. Anyone else wants to?
Yeah, I would say that just aside from that, when you're constructing your test, you can be thinking about things like adding in think time, adding in controllers that would help you to more realistically uh, approximate what a regular human user would do.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of elements that you can use probably also in K6 and Gatling that will let you do that as well.
So I can answer to the second piece. I think folks over here kind of nailed it on the scripting side. To actually figure out the user experience, you could actually instrument your applications with beacons, like performance beacons that could be sent over to your observability pipelines. So that you would know your web vital metrics, how fast did the DOM load, how long did the interaction take. You can time your interactions as well. And so this is not only good to capture it from a test perspective, but for you to know what's your baseline, like how are the customers actually experiencing your product. It's important that these metrics be available. These don't typically get considered as golden signals because they are browser-driven signals, but it's always good to capture them and consider them as your baseline.
And I'll take a little broader view because you guys have already covered from a tool perspective and everything. But traditionally, workload modeling, how we have done it is either user interviews or looking at logs and your monitoring observability solutions. So I'm going to be a fiend about this for this entire hour and going to
Mhm.
talk about MCP servers quite a ton because I am extremely excited about that. One thing that we are noticing is a lot of these observability tools are starting either they have official MCP servers or there are third party MCP servers that earlier it was the forte of an expert who knew how exactly to go in and figure out what to look at from a traffic perspective, come up with that Pareto analysis because you can't do exhaustive performance testing. But connect it to an MCP server, have an LLM, and talk to your data and ask it, hey, what happened in the last uh, 15 days? What are the most used things? What are customers using? And hooking up an MCP server to your observability tool, hook up your LLM, and just talk to your data.
You
That's what
just
we are trying to do.
you just completed the
Mhm.
last part because I was gonna ask, like, setting it up in the tool. Yes, there are tools really good at it, like it was mentioned, like KCX that has all the modeling. But where that data comes from, how do you know that that number that you finally got to is the right number? And I'm very excited, as Kaushal says, like observability is a pillar in performance. Nowadays, if you don't do observability with performance, it's difficult to get good results. And plugging MCPs on the mix, it's getting very interesting, really, really interesting. So for the audience, do you like the answers? Were you satisfied? Clap a little bit. Yeah, I know that we had lunch earlier, so everybody needs a little bit of coffee, so a little bit of clapping so that we can improve our performance.
So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how you've done that, because I heard you talking before about how you spent the last year
Mhm.
sort of working on this. Oh, sorry, I thought you spent the last year working on this.
About performance and
And
agents and MCPs
yep,
overall.
yep.
So yeah, we just spoke about that for the previous hour. Long story short, I'll talk about it in 2 minutes quickly. What we observed was, as a performance engineering team, that engineering teams, developers, we have thousands of developers who were waiting on performance teams to be able to do performance testing. There were small, minor things that teams could do by themselves, lighthouse tests on the front end, or single user test for performance. But for anything that required multiple users, load, and other types of scenarios, endurance, stress, etc., uh, the normal thing to do was to wait for the performance team. We tried many different ways of making it easy for engineers, developers themselves to do it over the years. We found a little bit of success by making APIs where you can put it in your CI/CD pipelines, but nothing has been as effective as right now. We have created a wrapper around a K6 instance and given it a few capabilities. Like it has access to all of the tests that are available in Git. And it has the ability to create simple tests given an API endpoint, a REST endpoint. Because again, the format of a K6 script on an artillery script is so simple and straightforward. And now we've put an MCP server in front of it. So now you can connect any LLM directly to it and start talking to your tool in plain English, not have to wait for the performance team because we are so backlogged with everything else that we have to do that for small, simple things, developers can connect the MCP to their IDE, to their Cloud Code or whatever they're using and start saying, hey, I just built this search endpoint. Uh, can you run a 500 TPS test for it? Earlier, that kind of request would have come to us, but with an MCP server sitting in front of this, the LLM is able to understand and take care of that request and do it for the user. Instant feedback for the user. They get the results nicely formatted and everything. And in the demo that we just did, I hooked up Slack, Jira, Confluence, GitHub, everything where the agent talked to all of these things, did the code analysis, found the issues, created defects, fixed the defects, ran the tests, and updated all of the systems as well.
Mimi, you happy?
Yeah, thank you.
I'm glad as well that here the panelists are questioning each other and saying like, "Ooh, how do you solve this? How do you make that?" And it's really, really cool that we have a mix of expertise here, probably 40 plus years of expertise added up here just in front of you. So I'm really, really happy about half a century, I would say. I here probably adding a little bit. So let's move on with the next question. I love the excitement about how to solve these situations. I just got Andrew. That Andrew? Yeah, good. We have a question from here in the audience. Andrew's uh, asking, when you write performance tests, how do you decide which metrics matter the most for a particular test? Mhm. Who wants to jump at it? Okay,
I can
Kaushal.
start with this one. So, like Chetan, you mentioned the four golden signals. When you're thinking about the backend, that's where we typically begin with latency, error rate, traffic, and saturation to understand from a backend perspective. And if you're looking at it from the front end perspective, the typical culprits, again, like Chaitanya mentioned, the core web vitals, LCP, largest contentful paint, time to interactive, and cumulative layout shift. INP, we have not started using that yet, interaction to next paint, but those are the starting points. And then based on that, depending on what you see, then you start diving deeper into everything that your observability and monitoring tools are going to throw at you, because there's going to be like 800 different things that you can look at. If you start looking at those directly, it becomes very overwhelming. So philosophy start from the user's perspective and work your way back from there as and when needed, versus starting from all the different metrics that these tools throw out.
Anyone else wants to complement?
Yeah. I mean, like there are some scenarios like these are sort of not usual days that you have to be prepared, but like these are Black Friday sort of scenarios where you may want to also introduce other metrics. Like let's say you have a waiting room for your customers. You have a big ad campaign that's going to spike your application usage, and you're creating a queue in Akamai or some CDN. You want to also monitor those kind of systems as to how many users have arrived on your systems but couldn't actually get through. So sometimes there are a lot of these production systems that have their own metrics. It may not be part of your regular observability toolkit, nor could it be part of your load testing toolkit. But you got to monitor those systems as well to see yeah, have you performed in a way where the outcomes that you're looking for are going to be guaranteed, like readiness for a Black Friday event.
Why not?
And I'll add, I think one of the things that I look for is I never really get to test in production. So one of the
Why?
yeah one of the metrics that I'm looking for is a known deficiency in the test environment. So if I know I'm limited by CPU, RAM, something, I'll monitor that as one of the major signals there. Um, but that's just because I like to limit the damage I can do. So
I mean, there are a couple of interesting points. Raise your hand if you knew all the acronyms that Kaushal mentioned. Mm, kind of. You don't feel like, yeah, I knew them all. Like, so there are so many terms, I would say, new in the performance testing, web performance, front end, the LCP, all these acronyms, LCP, MCP, QA, and performance testing, and PTO or something like that. No, PTO, that's another one, right? Uh, that we need to start ramping up, pun intended, learning and using a little bit more. Paired up with, I just came up with another interesting question that Chaitanya brought up. what do you do when you care for a metric, but your tool doesn't give it to you? And that happens often. Any?
So we have data collectors. We try to always, like, if the source isn't providing us that metric, we do request. Let's say it's a third-party product, we request them to send those events to our event bus or API. When we don't, it's, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's inevitable. At some point, you got to build that trust with the vendors. Um, or we scrape that data from whichever source and we dump it to our time series database periodically.
Any other experiences with those?
No, not really. Are you talking more about computed metrics or base metrics that are missing? Because honestly, I've never run into scenarios like that. Mostly it's computed metrics about what is the rate at which orders are being drained from a particular queue. But you can derive that just from the queue length itself. The order might be one specific type of message inside your queue, but we typically just rely on whatever that tool itself is providing directly.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. Does K6 give you LCP or asynchronous?
K6 browser,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
XK6 browser.
Yeah. I don't think it's Hex anymore, but
No? Okay.
uh, you're right.
Mhm.
An asynchronous request, how do you know how long that one really took?
An async request. Typically, we look at those through anything that has open telemetry, because then you'll see the full link, not link, the async span
Duration, yeah, the
duration
span.
in it.
So that's why I was putting them kind of on the spot, because there are some elements that if you don't have observability, open telemetry, any item that tells you, because with an async, that's really common.
Mhm.
Hey, it's responding in 0.2 seconds. Okay, 200, like it's awesome. And in the backend, it's taking 20 seconds. And many teams never ever notice some of those because it's async. It's programmed to say like, hey, I got your letter received. The mailman will work on it eventually, but you'll be happy. And it's not that they are laughing already. Have you experienced that? Several times, right? So it's something that I love that Kaushal right away. Like, hey, but there's this extension that will help me to get the LCP and some other metrics. Very often, a single tool won't be able to give you because of the nature of the tool or the nature of the problem. And that's a big, big situation that our engineering brains have to get working, know if the tool has some twist or some way in which what we can do it, or we have to use a secondary tool. That's a big, big impact. Okay, let's move on with the questions because I see the votes for Andrew. Great question. Everybody happy with the answer? Good discussions? Yeah. Yeah, the panelists get happy when you provide this feedback. Okay, Pedro got outvoted. You all voted for Pedro. Great. Now, oh, this is a good one. Good one, Pedro. Good. How do you integrate performance testing into the CI/CD pipeline? And what benefits or challenges have you encountered with this approach? Anyone wants to? Okay, I already see evil laughs. Okay.
I'll wait.
Yep.
So we've incorporated this at Intuit, but I got to be honest, it's really tough, and so the mileage can vary between teams. If you can mock your dependencies, and if you're successful at it, and if you're happy with it, that's one of the ideal scenarios where you can do a CI/CD based performance test. But you have to complement that with a full-blown integration test as well periodically. Otherwise, you wouldn't know how your system is going to interact when it's actually integrated with its dependencies. But if you could isolate it, then if every system is able to isolate the dependencies, then you can actually have an isolated performance environment that is capable of being integrated into your CI pipelines.
I also think that if you have obviously APIs that can drive those performance tests for you, they can be put right into the pipeline. And if you have things like virtual services that do exactly that, that essentially virtualize those services that maybe haven't been built yet or that they're third parties that may not be available, then you can actually do the performance testing that's specific to that set of code, right? You are just like we said was going to need to do the integration test eventually, right? You can't get around that. But if you're going to do some just, hey, does this new code that I wrote tank my performance or not, right? You can do that and add it right into your pipeline.
Mhm. It's a little bit, yeah.
And I would say, I mean, you would all probably agree with me. A lot of the times, the performance tests find functional problems,
Yeah.
so it's important to be somewhere, even if you're not in the same CD pipeline, but running frequently. Um, it has its pros and cons. So being on the bleeding edge is not necessarily the best. Being just a little bit behind, maybe with a blessed build or weekly build or something.
I love that clarification. Please, functional happens. Stop calling performance non-functional because an apple is non-functional. Anything else is non-functional. So it's, I'm sorry that's personal, but that definition, eh.
So
Um,
I'll
Yeah, go
you
on, go on.
guys covered everything that I was thinking about. I'll take a different approach to it and ask the question about what is a performance test, because performance is an umbrella term. So there's load, soak, endurance, stress, spike, volume, scalability. So the question comes back to what is the question that you are trying to answer and how quickly. For example, I think the last part of the question was what are the challenges that you face? One of the funniest challenges we keep facing is, oh, this is going to run for 1 hour and we don't want our build running for 1 hour. So can you give us results asynchronously after the fact? So that led to the question around, all right, what are the purposes of this and which one should run when at what level? All of you spoke about integration, but then starting small, like a quick, is 10 minutes enough of load to give useful insight to your application that it's not too long that your pipeline is running for, so, but it's not short enough that you're getting nothing valuable out of it? You run that every commit, let's say. But then certain types of tests you could run only every Friday night or every month, where you don't have to do a full blown resiliency test for every single commit. So that's how we've tackled some of that.
I'm almost hugging Kaushal now.
Mhm.
So that's a very very big point. If anyone knows me, my common rant is performance testing is not the same as load testing. If you're gonna do a load test, it's gonna take an hour, as Kaushal says, and everybody in the organization is gonna hate you if you stop the pipeline for 1 hour. Why an hour, 1 hour long test is supposed to happen? That's like a big ass load test, a BALT, I like to call them, which are very important. Yes. Raise your hand if you know what happened with Taylor Swift and the ticket company thou shalt not name, right? The rest you don't know? Wow, that was a big deal. We need more Swifties here. No, I'm kidding. um, so what happened was that the sale was so big that the system started supposedly misbehaving. I'm, I still question that because they didn't did like a big load test because Taylor Swift is a big deal. Do you get a big deal every sprint on your software,
No,
right?
no. And these types of tests that you're referring to, we generally call large scale events, right?
I mean, my name is kind of Fogler. Sorry that PG-13, please.
Right. So this large scale test event. So if you think about it, like Black Friday is, and it's an obvious one, right? All the realtors now are starting to do their big testing, and they're going to do it over a series of the next couple of months, right? Because the absolute worst thing that they want to happen is that they are overrun, and on Black Friday people can't buy. Right, they're full of turkey. They cannot buy that TV or whatever it is. Right, that's billions of dollars, right? That's not, it's just an enormous amount, right? So they can't do that. But if you think things like sporting events, like
Cyber Monday,
Cyber Monday, like
Mother's
when
Day,
schools run around their registration, right?
Super Bowl ads.
Yep, Super Bowl ads. Like think about like the University of California, right? Has all the kids are trying to register for their classes, well, last week or something like that, right? Those are big loads that they're having that they have to prep for. That's not something that you necessarily have to put in as part of your pipeline. Those can be separate, isolated test events that you can do to make sure that what you have gone, your infrastructure is working properly, your application is working properly, and you have enough time where you can say, oh, we didn't meet what our target was. Let's fix this and do another test again. And again, those are special tests that you don't have to do as part, and that you don't have to stop your pipeline for an hour, 3 hours, however long they want to do those tests for.
Yeah, it's something, Pedro, great question. This is a big situation that those big tests, of course, you have to do them. It's super important. Don't believe that big load tests are like, no, we're agile, we know more, we don't have to do it. You still see again and again companies having problems on those events. Some companies even like stop the pipeline weeks or even months before that event is coming so that they can just test and prepare for that, but it's not part of the pipeline. Everybody, what is the first rule of Fight Club?
Don't talk about Fight Club.
Okay, you talked about it. So the first rule about of the pipelines, you never slow down the pipeline. You are going to be hated for it. And if you are trying to integrate a performance test, don't do the big one, long one, heavy one, because you're just releasing a small piece of code. Supposedly, if you're doing continuous, just test the impact of that small. It doesn't have to be a massive scale. Just check that that's not breaking what was working before. So I like to call those tiny Chihuahua puppy-sized performance tests, because you can have one running around here and you wouldn't notice. I mean, they are loud, but that's not the point. So it's very important that you don't slow the pipeline and take care of those big situations in a separate process. Big performance tests, put them aside, even assemble a SWAT team for that, and it's not part of continuous. We like that?
Yeah.
We're happy? Okay? Yeah, clapping, clapping, clapping. Yay! Okay, moving on to the next question. Mr. or Miss Anonymous. We're going to get a lot of those. This is weird. What online learning tools are available for entry-level learning for performance testing? That's a good one. Do you know of any?
I do, actually. I'm glad you asked. So Blazemeter does have something called Blazemeter University that has a large number of courses on not just how to use the Blazemeter tool, but there are introductory courses on JMeter, on Selenium, on I think there's a couple other ones there. So there's a lot of really great information there. That you can go to and check. But there's also other online training courses. If you go to I think like Udemy or any kind of the learning platforms, have a lot of these tutorials and things to help you learn how to do some of this performance testing.
Any others?
I feel like in the world of ChatGPT, there are more interesting ways to learn. Like if you know how to write a software, like a REST API with Hello World, to try to break it in your own laptop using any technique. Bunch of curl commands that you can bootstrap by asking ChatGPT or whatever. And if you can figure out what was the root cause, why it slowed down on your local machine by asking ChatGPT to write you all sorts of script, I think you've learned at least the elementary aspect of load testing, and then it's just a matter of getting familiar with open source or some vendor-based frameworks. But I think a lot of people get hung up on the technical details of which function I'm supposed to use in this library or that library. But I think at the core, it's just you're trying to learn how to stress a software that is written and trying to find out the root cause for it. So start really very simple, use LLMs to learn all of these things locally on your machine.
Any other?
Well, second what Chaitanya said about the LLMs, and I'll throw in my second choice after that is YouTube. I don't think there's anything that I've not found and learned that I can do a search or query, and pretty sure someone must have created a nice detailed video about it, explaining and teaching that. So those are my top two: ChatGPT and YouTube.
There's this well-known performance podcast called Perf Bites.
Mm.
Yeah,
Which is also on YouTube.
yeah. That's actually where I got my start. So I kind of learned. I had a long commute, long for North Carolina, not long for California, and so I got a lot of podcasts, and that's where I first really got to listen to a lot of the Perf Bites casts and learn some of the basics. It's a really good resource. So
Any
Mark
other?
Tomlinson's videos. I've watched a bunch of those.
Yeah. Um, that I know, I like most of the recommendations. I like that in Perforce you have several courses, several trainings like consolidated in a single place that people know this is the source of many of them. I love that you couldn't remember them all because there are so many. That's good. There's not enough performance material out there. As a content creator, I feel bad about that. But yeah, producing some of the Perfects podcasts. And believe it or not, in YouTube, open free YouTube as well, there are many, many content creators trying to teach you. I have seen many that are like learn JMeter, learn K6, learn the yeah, cool. I don't know, learn Volkswagen Beetle, learn Prius. But how about the practice itself? All the questions, because most of the questions that you are posting right now are around what principle, what should I choose, what should I do, not what button to press. So that's really, really important. That's a very good question, Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous.
I'd also like to mention that there is a performance engineering subreddit that
Oh,
also it's I don't think it's super super busy, but we could
Mm.
change that. Let's change that, people.
Okay.
But there are good
challenge accepted.
conversations there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I
Good
didn't
know
know about that
Nice.
one. Okay, we're gonna dive into it and start playing on that subreddit. There are now that many sources out there. Let's improve that. Audience, did you like that? Yeah? Hey, good answers. I hope that you get enough from those places so that you can start learning, improving, and rocking it. Thank you, Mr. Anonymous. Next, this Anonymous is very insistent and getting votes and everything. This is an interesting one. Which performance testing tools, again, tools, I'm going to go for types rather than specific names, should new teams prioritize today? And what's the fastest learning path in the AI era? Ooh. So performance testing tools, and yeah, that's a two question in one, right? That doesn't
So,
go
yeah,
for it.
yeah, I'll try to wing this one. Like, I don't fully understand it, but if what the way I'm seeing is that, like in the world of AI, if you were to augment the effort that is required to run a performance test, what kind of tools would you want to pick? I'll say pick any tool that allows you to write the script in a popular programming language, because all of these language models are trained on contents from GitHub. If you pick an esoteric programming language, you are not likely going to get a high quality script. And so in your prompts, try to say, hey, I want to write a script using JavaScript. I'm only familiar with this. Can you help me understand, which tool I'm supposed to pick? It's going to give you a list. I don't want to be biased, but the LLM is going to, based on what it's trained, it's going to suggest you a few things, and then it's also going to look at the internet, and it's also going to augment what it already knows with what's new, and you're going to get like a summarized set of tools that you could use. But don't force yourself to learn GUI based products, because I feel that's easy at the get go. Like if you find a nice looking GUI based product that you can just put a URL and blast a test, that may be good maybe for a week. But then if you want to really get serious, you want to start learning how to script based on a programming language, a serious programming language.
I would even say that you want to think about a tool that allows you to get the scale that you're looking for. So something that's going to be able to let you really scale up if that's what you need, that has flexibility so that you can use whatever underlying framework that you want to use, right? So if they can consume and use different frameworks, because let's face it, sometimes we start in one framework and then we move to another one. And even possibly with AI now, those frameworks may even be going away, right? They may be sort of the past and we're looking towards the future. Um, but you also want to be able to say like, and you want to have something that's going to be able to give you results back that are easy to understand, report on, that have the metrics that you want, and also maybe have some analysis capabilities, even if they're already starting to use AI to understand like what happened in your application, like where are the, if you've gotten errors in your test, where are those errors coming from, what possible reasons could they have been um, generated by. And AI can do a lot of that even now, right? So this is all kind of stuff that you want to be thinking about when you're picking your performance testing tool.
And I would add up, how do you know which one will be fitting on that schema? Because if I know nothing, yeah, you should know how to pick the performance tool.
Yeah, I mean, there's
That's tough. Yeah, I know, I know.
no, I mean,
Sorry to put you on that spot.
so again, there's a lot of like talking to our good friend Google and ChatGPT and Google Gemini. I kind of like Google Gemini. I might be an outlier, I know, but um, to understand what are the tools in the space that kind of do what you want to do, and there's hundreds, thousands of YouTube videos, even short ones, that kind of talk a little bit about what each of the tool does. And then it's really just depending on where you're at. If you're kind of a small shop and you don't have a lot of resources, you can look for something that has a free tier and try it out, right? If you are sort of a mid and you're really looking to get, or large enterprise, right? And you're really looking to bring something in at an enterprise level, then you can go through and do like proof of value, things like that, to make sure that what you want to get is gonna meet your needs.
That's great. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Any more insights?
Well, I would just say that there are several open source options out there, and as you said, a lot of the LLMs were trained on, some would say, stolen data from GitHub, but a lot of it is biasing towards open source. And honestly, there's nothing keeping you from showing your work in the public. I think most recently, when I started working on a project, I asked it, what are the most popular projects? And they gave me a list. I used that to start to figure out how I'm going to structure my tests, test data, shared functions, that sort of thing. But the thing that I've never found, and maybe you all can help me with this, I've never found good open source test reports. I've never seen it because it's such a critical part of what we do. But I've just never seen it. So if you guys have a source on
Cool.
that.
I can add a little bit on that. I mean, not the best source. I have seen, Grafana has a catalog of dashboards that you already can pick from and has a few options out of the box. I wish that the community would create more and be more tailor suited. I mean, you can upload them and sign them and say like, hey, I created this, community, use it. But you're right, there are not that many. I think that's a bit advanced to kind of just start with, because but at the same time it's a question that many junior performance engineers like, how do I build this report nice and easy? Because it's not so transparent when you think about it. Sometimes you have to present the report to C-level, and the directors don't care about throughput and where the locator failed to find the, can I go or not to production? And that's pretty much, some reports are like thumbs up or thumbs down, or some others are like we're mentioning, like big traces so that you can pinpoint exactly where's the problem. So, okay, Kaushal is jumping at, yeah, bring it on, interrupt me, please.
No, no, please finish.
That's the point of a panel. We want.
So face similar problems, very similar problems. Artillery, Gatling. Gatling, I think it has that orange report that it generates. It has a lot of details, but when we moved to K6, we found that, okay, yeah, I wish there was something more. So now what we're doing with LLMs is hooking it up to a math tool so that it doesn't hallucinate that 2 plus 2 is equal to 22. and then giving it all of the raw, not the raw results, but the summarized result. Because if you give it the raw results, then it goes crazy again. Uh, and with a math tool where it will not flub simple things, it is able to create a nice little report. So the demo that we just did in the previous session created a beautiful Confluence page with nicely formatted, calling out the specific things that you should be paying attention to. And we, as a group of almost 40 performance engineers, looked at these reports to see would few months the with this is as good as any of us who have 18, 20, 25 years of experience in performance testing can do. So that's what we rely on right now.
Wow. And that's really being aided, probably teached a little bit by AI. I do agree with the points on code-oriented tools. I have a few that, not for performance, but some other type of tools, where like, hey, ChatGPT, can you help me with this? Oh, yeah, it's a green button behind the burger menu on the pizza chat on the web. It's not as easy as like, yeah, here's the code. And that's right. Nowadays, it's going to be easier to kind of quickly pick up. I mean, the chat GPTs are awesome at giving us some indications, but even the language, and they are fed from some other repos, blog posts, etc., where if the person that wrote them did not describe well the button that you're meant to press on that GUI, oh, one little note. I can make ChatGPT fail right away with a performance question. Why? Because of most of the industry and the internet has like a twisted perspective. And what I was saying, performance and load used as interchangeable. You ask ChatGPT as a performance for a performance guidance indication, and we'll go right into load, which is not the best approach. So it's a great tool, but drive safely. So be careful. I love those indications. Oh, and on Kaushal point, feeding all the data points to your MCP and a GPT platform. I want to see how fast your credits run out, because that burns tokens like crazy. It's really good, but be wise with your tokens. So thank you, Anonymous. We like this answer. We're happy. Yay! Okay, that got more excitement. Yeah. Next one. Another one from Andrew. Thanks, Andrew. How will you test the performance of a single component within a larger product? That's a good one.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Is it a microservice or just a
Component could be
library?
many different things.
In what form is the interface created?
Fortunately, it's in the audience. Microservice? Not a microservice. Okay.
Not a microservice.
That would have been easier. Yeah.
That would have been that. So is it a library for the front end or a back end? I see.
A module.
Okay. Yeah, you'd have to stub it out. Like you gotta figure out like some mock interface that you'll have to slap on that library to trigger the API call. Create a marker of when the call is made, and have a marker like end marker when the call is ended. You'll have to have some sort of like a harness built like this in order to test it. So these are very rare cases, but I wouldn't like if I am a security library team, and security libraries have to be really performant. So you need some sort of a shell application to run these libraries. So you'll have to create those harness.
One thing, yeah, agree with this approach completely. One other thing that we do when it is not very easy to quickly create mocks or something for it is to look at the entire system end to end. The typical way is you inject load from the very main entry point and then watch it go all the way through. And in that path somewhere, it will exercise your component. So one other exercise that we would do is sit with the architects and figure out, are there other entry points into the system that I can isolate and don't have to enter all the way from the front, but maybe I can generate events and only that part of the flow gets exercised where your component lives.
Interesting. I have a follow-up.
Mhm.
how do you trace that step by step through all the components?
How do you trace that all the so in this example, I'm assuming that I'm not interested in the end-to-end performance. I'm only interested in this component. So hopefully you have observability on your components. But one other way is there have been times when we don't have observability tooling that catches very specific things. Then we've done primitive things like polling the status of some other indicator. Like once this thing runs, maybe this value changes in the database. So very primitive, like you're hitting the database unnecessarily over and over again, but it gives you something rather than nothing.
When I'm hitting your knee, does your leg jump?
Yes.
Any other? We're good? We're happy with those? So, yeah, I wanted to add on some of these when you are isolating, like Kaushal is saying, it's really cool that you have, when you have some traceability, open telemetry, observability, I don't know, an agent checking on what is happening. But even then, you have to do weird things because probably on that system you have many other things happening. And how do you know that what you triggered in the front end, maybe that single component, is exactly the same thing that you're seeing on the database? Out of 50 other things that are happening on the database per second, how do you define exactly that one? So you gotta get creative, as you say, like when I click here, but I marked it with a yellow hammer. So if the food is yellow, I know that that's the hammer that I used. I mean, probably it's a big extension, but you gotta get creative. That's a really, really good point. Now, moving on to the last question. Before that, happy with that? Yay! Okay, upvotes. This is the last opportunity, last question before we say goodbye. And this is interesting. What should we avoid before getting into AI for testing? I think we already hinted at a couple of those. Uh, anyone? Blue screen, everybody?
Yeah, we already mentioned the two. Don't dump the raw results.
Mm.
It does weird things. And what you called out, it'll burn your token usage. And the other thing that we saw was it will try to come up with, you give it a performance test summary from a K6, a Gatling or something, and it's trying to be over helpful and say, oh, you might have this type of, you might have a n+1 problem here. How do you know? You have not looked at my code. So our main prompt, we made it very specific, and we've been tuning that prompt to try to get only the insightful thing out of it instead of it going crazy and just giving us a answer that it thinks can impress us.
I would just like to add, like if you're picking a product that is code based and you're asking Cursor or Windsurf to create an end-to-end script, you would have noticed this even otherwise when you're developing an application. It doesn't really do a good job in how it organizes your project. Have strict guidelines in Cursor if you're prompting it to kind of generate a script as to how you want it to structure your entire project, and have in mind that these tools are not that great in reducing reusability of code. So you want to probably first develop those modules. Like let's say there is an identity component, it could be a library. So have that developed separately, include it as a dependency, and then the main content of the script can be generated separately, right? Like so uh, you don't want every single script to have the same set of boilerplate code. So have strict guidelines on your LLM to solve all these problems.
Yeah, just to add to that, in my most recent project that I did, it's like the anti-pattern to like build the whole framework first and think about what it's going to be in a month from now. But it really did help to like have it laid out what I want this to look like, not what you need to do right now. And so I had that go into my README, and then
Mhm.
every time I referenced it, I said, "Look at the README to reinforce your decision." and that really helped. It seems like it's over engineering, but it really helps.
Yeah. Oh, on that note, I'd also add spec-driven development with something like SpecKit from GitHub. That has been super helpful in with the README, of course, that helps. But with SpecKit and spec-driven development, you're taking it to the next level of having it conform to what you want it to do.
Mimi, you were
Oh, I mean, these guys had some great comments. I would just say that, don't be afraid to start very small and test things out, start to get a feel for what kind of prompts and the prompt engineering that you're going to be doing, and understand how the system is responding to what you're asking, right? So if you're asking, to help write a test, make it start small, make it a test, and then see what it came back with and whether that fit your idea of what you actually wanted it to do. And if it didn't, work on your tweaks so that you can get to the case where you are actually speaking the same language and can get really good uh, basically results from what you're trying to ask for.
that's a very good point. And to wrap up all these elements is good. And I love that most of them touched on some elements like have pre-built stuff that you know by hand. And I'm gonna close with you need to know before you start wrapping on AI on whatever, not only performance. If you don't have a basic understanding, you won't be able to catch hallucinations, and you will be running on hallucinations of AI if because you have previous knowledge and understanding. You know that when I think it was Bart that said like for a healthy mineral intake, you should eat a couple of rocks a day or something like that. We are adults. We have been trained on that. We have studies around it, and we know that's not good. But if you say that to a toddler, they will be like, "Oh, great! Give me some more rocks," right? And many of us are doing things like that with AI, just embracing it, jumping over it. And if we don't know, at least at a basic level, some of the things, we will fall for those rocks all the time. So, with that, everybody, thank you very much for coming to the panel. Big applause to the panelists. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your questions. Thank you very much, everybody, tuning in. It was a pleasure. We are going to close the panel now. Adios, everybody. Adios, panelists. Take care. And everybody, don't forget to check the session. There are QR codes so that the panelists will receive your love. And if there's no love,